absence of any normal vetting or background check process for Donald Trump's nominees to run the U.S. government, perhaps a Rachel Maddow Show public servant announcement can help. Today, it's Trump's pick to run the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS commissioner, which is a really important job, potentially a dangerous job. You might remember that the last time around with Trump, people who he decided were his enemies, people like the director and the deputy director at the FBI, they mysteriously found themselves randomly selected for really rare, really extra intrusive IRS audits. Now, ultimately, there was a review of that said it was all just a coincidence, nothing to see here, and okay. But Trump has also denied specific allegations from his White House chief of staff that Trump demanded repeatedly while he was president that the IRS should be sicked on people who he decided were his enemies and opponents. And yeah, that is some of what Richard Nixon is famous for, and not in a good way. Because of the potential for abuse in this particular job, because of our country's history with abuse in this particular job, you really want to make doubly, triply sure that the head of the IRS is somebody above reproach, somebody who won't do it if a president tries that kind of thing again. It's got to be a serious person with real expertise, real gravitas, somebody who won't be afraid to say no to some thin-skinned, vengeful, lawless president who might come along at some point. I mean, the last thing you want in this particular job is a fast-talking wheeler-dealer type.
Hey, and take it 25. Would you get $30,000? How about a 30? 35, 40. Able to buy 45, 45, 50. How about a $50,000 now? 5 to buy 60. Now 5, 65.
And so, behold, the literal auctioneer, a man who talks fast for a living, who Donald Trump has picked to be his commissioner of the IRS. Here are 5 things to know about Trump's IRS choice. Former Republican Congressman Billy Long. Thing number 1. On the qualifications of Billy Long to be head of the IRS. Is Billy Long a CPA, a certified public accountant? No. Is he an accountant? No. Does he have any background at all in any kind of accounting? No. Bookkeeping? No. Finance? No. How about math? No. Is he a tax lawyer? No. Does he have a college degree? No. Has he ever managed a large organization of any kind? The IRS has 85,000 employees and a $12 billion budget. Ever managed a large organization of any kind? No. No, he has not. In addition to his work as an auctioneer, he has been a realtor. He's also been a radio talk show host, and he once ran a mini golf. That said, Billy Long has also moonlighted as a quasi-professional poker player, which prompted this rare political headline from Poker News. Quote, President-elect Donald Trump taps longtime poker player to head the IRS. So Billy Long has none of the qualifications for the job that every other IRS commissioner has had in the whole modern history of this agency. But he did serve in Congress. While he was in Congress, did he serve on any of the tax writing committees? No, he did not. But he did get an award while he was in Congress, and it was an award related to taxes. It was called the, quote, Tax Fighter Award from something called the National Tax Limitation Committee. What is the National Tax Limitation Committee? When Forbes magazine went to look into it, they found that the website for this organization now points to what appears to be a gambling website based in Thailand. That makes it harder to figure out the selection criteria for this particular award. But Billy Long won it. While he was in Congress, he did repeatedly introduce legislation to abolish the IRS, to, in fact, abolish the income tax as a thing, and instead replace it with a huge 30% sales tax on everything you buy. If that sounds familiar, it's because this very expensive idea was ginned up by the Church of Scientology in the 1990s. It has been kept alive by Republicans like Billy Long ever since. Thing number 2. While he was in Congress, Billy Long did do one other tax-related thing, which has to do with puppies, which sounds awesome, but it's not good. When he was first elected to Congress, voters in Billy Long's home state of Missouri considered a ballot measure to improve conditions for dogs and puppies at puppy mill dog breeding facilities in that state. And it was basic kindness stuff. The measure said that dogs needed to have food and water and housing and some way to exercise and run around. And the people of Missouri voted for that. God bless them. But when the Humane Society said that they too supported that measure, Billy Long, newly in Congress, demanded that the IRS should launch an investigation into the Humane Society. He demanded that the IRS should strip them of their nonprofit status. Now, in the end, his demands were not heeded. He did not succeed in getting the IRS to crush the Humane Society as retaliation for its efforts to protect puppies. But if he were in charge of the IRS, presumably he could now get that wish. Which brings us to thing number 3. I mentioned that Billy Long mostly just has his auctioneer school degree. He has no background or training in anything substantively related to the IRS. But, caveat, look at his Twitter bio. You can see it says at the top there, Congressman Billy Long, CTBA. If you say it fast, it kind of sounds like CPA. But it's not. It's not a CPA, Certified Public Accountant. It's a CTBA. What is a CTBA? He says that it stands for Certified Tax and Business Advisor. CTBA, Certified Tax and Business Advisor, which sounds very fancy. Is that a real thing? No, that is not really a thing. Headline. Billy Long, Trump's nominee to lead the IRS, touts a credential that tax experts say is dubious. Quote, the designation is offered by a small Florida firm, Excel Empire, which was established just 2 years ago and only requires attendance at a 3-day seminar. Tax experts say they have never heard of CTBA as a credential in the tax profession. So, not a credential in the tax profession. But as a credential to be in charge of all taxes in the United States of America? Sure, why not? You said it. The company from which Billy Long seems to have purchased this thing that sounds like CPA if you mumble, they do list someone as their chief tax planner and tax attorney. But that is a person who let his law license in Ohio lapse 19 years ago and apparently never regained it. So he appears to not be a licensed attorney of any kind, nor a licensed investment advisor. But his company will sell you that same CTBA credential that they sold Billy Long for somewhere between $30,000 and $4,997, depending on whether you catch the sale. The, quote, tax attorney at this company, who again is not a licensed attorney, also reportedly invented a whole other new title besides CTBA. So if you want to step it up a notch from the fake credential of CTBA, you can also select the title Tax Master. They will also proclaim you Tax Master, which also sounds amazing. We reached out to the Tax Master guy for comment, but he declined to answer our questions. That said, Billy Long himself apparently has not yet achieved the Tax Master title from this Florida company. He hasn't paid for it or gone to the seminar or whatever, but maybe when he's head of the IRS, they'll give him that designation as an honorary degree. Thing number 4. Go back to the Twitter bio for a second. There's something else there besides the not a real thing, fake CTBA tax credential. Right there in his Twitter bio, it says, quote, DM me to save 40% on your taxes. Seriously, that is still there right now on his Twitter bio, even after he has been named to be IRS commissioner by the incoming president. DM me to save 40% on your taxes. What that's about is this. Here's the current IRS commissioner testifying in Congress. And what he's doing in this testimony he's actually asking Congress to get rid of one particular tax program, to close down a specific tax program because it had produced what the IRS called a, quote, gold rush of bogus tax claims. And that one particular tax program, which the IRS wants shut down because so many people are applying to it in bogus terms, that is what Billy Long does for a living now. At this company that he promotes now, 2 of its leaders were banned from working as securities brokers. But when COVID came around, they decided to start a new outfit that, among other things, promotes this particular COVID-era tax program. The New York Times describes the company as taking a, quote, expansive view of who is eligible to get money from this program. Billy Long certainly seems to. He, for example, says that you shouldn't listen to your CPA if your CPA tells you that this is a tax program for which you do not qualify.
When people walk in and say, hey, this auctioneer, real estate broker, former congressman told me I'm going to get $1.2 million back. You're my CPA. Why didn't you tell me that? Instantly, the reflex reaction is to go to bashing the, that's a joke, that's a fake deal, that's not true. You're going to have to pay all that money back. You'll get audited. You know, they just come up with any excuse they can.
They come up with any excuse. When your CPA tells you, you know, if you do this, you're going to get audited. You're going to have to pay this money back. You do not qualify for this thing. You know, it's just any excuse. Forget your CPA. Come talk to Billy. We reached out for comment to Billy Long and also to the company that he works with. We have not heard back. But I should tell you, the IRS has just warned that one of the, quote, worst of the worst tax scams that taxpayers should be on the lookout for is people telling you that you qualify for this tax program when in fact you don't.
You know, they just come up with any excuse they can.
Come up with any excuse. The IRS does this list every year. They call it the Dirty Dozen. Compiled annually, the Dirty Dozen lists a variety of common scams that taxpayers may encounter. Quote, don't fall prey, says the IRS. For the current Dirty Dozen list, it's what the IRS calls phishing and smishing scams. They also have this big description about fake charities trying to scam people. But number 2 on the latest IRS Dirty Dozen list of so-called worst of the worst tax scams is this one. Beware of aggressive promoters who dupe taxpayers into making questionable employee retention tax credit claims. That is the tax program that is a big enough multi-billion-dollar fraud magnet that the IRS recently took the unprecedented step of setting up a backsies system, setting up an oh wow, I didn't mean it system, where people who have been duped by scammers into believing they were eligible for this thing when they weren't, people can actually take back their filing from the IRS without getting into trouble for it. The IRS also really did ask Congress to shut this whole program down because it has been such a magnet for fraudsters. The IRS on its website right now warns this, quote, employers should be wary of advertisements that advise them to apply for money by claiming the credit when they may not qualify. The ads have been all over radio, TV, and social media. You may even get ads that look like official government letters or texts, emails, and phone calls advertising eligibility. That's the warning from the IRS right now to anybody who might see an ad for the employee retention tax credit. The same tax credit that Billy Long advertises on his hat, which he wears because promoting this exact tax program is what he does for a living. From the New York Times profile, quote, at meetings with chapters of Hispanic chambers of commerce across the country, Mr. Long sometimes wore a hat advertising the credit as he tried to drum up business. In a podcast interview last year about his work, Long said, quote, what's working for me is the trust factor. They see me getting this money for their compadres. The trust factor. Same get free money from the IRS tax pitch, same hat, same auctioneer, now the potential future boss of the IRS. Which brings us to thing number 5. Billy Long, Donald Trump's choice for IRS commissioner, likes props. Hats and gear and mascots and stuff. He wears that hat about the fraud magnet tax program that he promotes in his Twitter bio and when he's traveling around the country talking to Hispanic groups. He very briefly became famous during the first Trump impeachment when this photo circulated of him appearing to have a wad of cash sticking out of his suit pocket while he was waiting to give his speech in support of Trump on the House floor. But what looked like cash sticking out of his pocket is actually fake money. Not real money, but fake money that he apparently carries around and gives out all the time. It's a fake $45 bill with Trump's face on it. Get it? Because he was the 45th president? Billy Long likes to say that that's the only bill he ever passed in Congress, which is very funny and also true. And also it's a joke about him being ineffectual in Congress. And it's also a joke about counterfeiting. Billy Long claims that he once tipped a Las Vegas cab driver with one of the fake $45 bills. And he says the cab driver was thrilled because who doesn't like to be tipped with fake money? The fake Trump money isn't all of it, though. Billy Long has also praised Trump's stamina in public. He tweeted that Trump is, quote, the Energizer Bunny, quote, and I'm the Energizer Turtle. I don't know about that one. Billy Long has also repeatedly claimed to have invented the phrase Trump train. Which again, I don't know, but honestly, let's just leave it there. Who's going to fight him for that honor? But that's 5 things to know about Billy Long, Trump's pick to lead the IRS. That said, though, in the spirit of bad math, here's also a bonus thing that is not technically about Billy Long, which is that Billy Long should not be appointed commissioner of the IRS when Donald Trump becomes president. Not because Billy Long is unqualified or because he wants to abolish the IRS or because he currently makes his living peddling a problematic tax credit that he would then be in charge of, not to mention what him running the IRS might mean for people like at the Humane Society who want to protect puppies. No, Billy Long should not be the appointed commissioner of the IRS when Trump becomes president, because nobody should. And that's because there is no vacant position to nominate anyone to. The IRS already has a commissioner who is currently in the middle of a 5-year term that doesn't end until 2027. The IRS isn't like any other government agency. It's not like, the State Department where a new president's going to have a new foreign policy and so he gets to nominate a new Secretary of State when he gets sworn in. The IRS isn't like that. It is just a technocratic institution that is supposed to crunch the numbers and carry out the job of collecting taxes in a technocratically efficient and sufficient way. A way that doesn't change from one administration to the next. And so the IRS is one of those agencies where the top person isn't supposed to turn over with a new president. The job has a 5-year term. It's specifically supposed to overlap into various presidents' terms because it's one of those jobs that really desperately needs to be independent and protected from politics. No president in modern history has ever fired the IRS chief at the start of his term just because he wanted his own guy in there. The fact that Donald Trump apparently wants and intends to do that should itself ring alarm bells, regardless of who he picks for the Trump train, Energizer Turtle, fake $45 bill thing, regardless of whether it's Billy Long, CTBA, or anyone else. This is just something that should not happen. This has been another Rachel Maddow Show.